Hello, I'm Sarah King. I'm a lecturer of economics at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia.
And I'm Adolph Brown. I'm Dr. Adolph Brown for economics for CNU.
So we're really excited to talk about how we both have been engaged with community engaged learning over the past few years and how we've been able to bring this unique pedagogical approach to our students. We do want to thank the CNU Center for Community Engagement for helping us with the training and helping us to really learn about this pedagogy, as well as the Bonner Foundation, the Reef Center, and our dean's offices for providing financial support. So what is community engaged learning? Community engaged learning, which we'll be referring to as CEL, is a pedagogical approach that involves students, community partners, and instructors working together to analyze and address community identified priorities through experiential learning. We'll talk a bit about what the students get from this experiential learning later, but what is really important is that we are really focused on those community identified priorities, which is a bit different than how we typically approach our pedagogy. So this educational practice is high impact and will meet student learning objectives through the course content, but also through this community engagement and critical reflection, which we'll also touch on later. The students will generate and apply academic knowledge in a community-based setting to address priorities and opportunities identified by the partner. And what's also really important here is that this is a mutually beneficial collaboration where our students benefit a lot from this experience, but our community partners should as well. And this helps to anchor our university into the local community by providing these meaningful connections between our teaching, research, and service, as well as the priorities of the community. So when we think of what community engagement might look like, we think of it almost like a ladder, where at the bottom of the ladder, we have direct service. This is closest to what you might think of as service learning, where the students are engaged in short-term service projects with a partner. They're going out doing some sort of work, working at a soup kitchen, tutoring at a school, something like that. The next rung of the ladder is what we would consider to be indirect service. So students are helping to build the capacity of an organization. Often this might look like marketing projects or accounting projects, things like that. We then move into community-based research, where students are examining a research question that has been articulated by the community partner through a research or academic study. And finally, there's social action and advocacy, where students are engaging with the community partner to analyze a social problem, develop an action plan, find policy recommendations, and maybe even advocate for social change. So what does this look like for us? I have now done community engaged learning twice, both times in an urban economics elective course. This is a 300 level elective for us. The course is really focused on the geography of economic activities. So we're studying where economic activity happens, why economic agents are choosing to locate near each other. And then we look at economic activity and policies that are inherently place-based, such as housing, transportation, and the environment. So some major questions that we're answering are, why do cities exist? Why do firms locate near each other? And who benefits from economic redevelopment?
And I taught economic way of thinking. This is an intro level econ course. And this mainly studies how students learn individuals, businesses, and governments make decisions. It's a mixed blend of macro and microeconomics. It's more focused on problem solving and understand economic incentives.
So when we compare the CEL approach to a traditional course, there are some similarities, but there are also some really important differences. So in a traditional course, you might have your students write an individual term paper. It's graded by the instructor. It may or may not have a specific focus. So maybe you give them an umbrella of topics and they choose something in there. In CEL, the students are going to be producing a deliverable that is intended to benefit the community partner. So this isn't just something read by the instructor and thrown away. It's actually being used by the community partner. And the focus is going to be intended to, again, support that partner. It's going to be identified in collaboration with the partner rather than giving students that broad umbrella. In a traditional course, you might also know that the course material is typically delivered through traditional lectures, readings, and assignments. And while all of those are still there in a CEL course, the students are likely also going to participate in partner-led lectures where they provide a bit of community context to what we're learning in the classroom. The students will go on field trips. I know that in my previous experience at CEL, we took 3 field trips that year to see different parts of our community, and they might read community-based readings. So not just academic readings, though those are important, but we'll also have some of those community-based readings. And then the traditional course, students are engaging in class discussions and homework assignments, and those don't necessarily go away here, but we're also intentionally adding in critical reflection, which we'll touch on a bit later. So getting into some specifics, urban economics is all about where economic activity is happening, and we're thinking about place-based policy. So my courses have had 4 broad topic areas where I've been finding nonprofit partners to assist us with. We've looked at housing, we've looked at the environment, food access, transportation. And with all of these areas, we've had a wide variety of projects and questions posed to us by community partners. Some have been, our nonprofit isn't near the bus line. We're having trouble getting our clients to be able to see us. So the students dive into transportation policy in our local area. They've looked at zoning, they've looked at housing access, housing affordability, they've looked at environmental concerns that come up in an urbanized environment. So a lot of really interesting areas that they're able to learn about in this hands-on experience with our nonprofits. The projects for my class have all been a policy report as well as an associated policy brief. So the policy reports are like 15 to 20 pages where they're diving into this research question and then proposing some policy suggestions. So we're kind of in between that community-based research and social advocacy ladder runs. And then their policy briefs have looked like flyers or executive summaries to be a quick overview of what they've done. The students all deliver a presentation to our class, the community partners, and other interested stakeholders, and then they engage in critical reflection throughout the semester, including a final critical reflection essay.
And for my 200 level class, we had the topic areas. I focused on budgeting, savings, economic independence, consumer behavior, resource allocation, and I really touched on topics with the budget part of cost analysis for the Tasha House and 4 Oaks, what I'll talk about on the next slide. For the project, it was mainly for a financial plan for both parties, for their clientele, and we talked about incentives, opportunity costs, financial planning, and scarcity across the board. And this empowered not only the students, but the community partners to understand what the knowledge throughout the class. Again, with Natasha House and 4 Oaks, again, if you want to do 1 partner, 2 partners, or multiple, it varies from person to person. I picked Natasha House and 4 Oaks because of both parties had this very similar missions and visions. So with Natasha House is serving homeless women and children. For 4 Oaks, it served assistance for homelessness, which aligned very well for both students. And when I split it up, some students can pick Natasha House or 4 Oaks if they wanted to.
And just to add on to that, I have generally had multiple partners when I do it, which logistically is a transition as an instructor. We're having to now juggle not only ourselves and our students, but these partners. But I do find it to be really rewarding that the students are able to explore multiple partner areas and support multiple organizations, though many faculty members do choose to only have 1 partner and really invest in that partner over the course of the semester. So both approaches are great and are going to have their own benefits. So I've noted critical reflection earlier, and I do want to actually talk about what that is and why it's so important. It really is that bridge between what the students are doing in the classroom and what they're doing with their community engagement. So critical reflection can take a lot of forms, but it must be intentional and structured and relatively frequent. So I've had reflection that looks like class discussions, they've done written essays, they've done small group discussions, they've done discussion boards. It can take so many different forms as long as we are helping to bridge that gap between what they're doing inside the classroom and outside of the classroom.
And also I could say with critical reflection, for any other person that teaches, multiple courses, that's doing exams and assignments, this class discussions and like having small groups, this just changes the way people think. And then they leave the classroom not only understanding econ, but understanding other parties and how econ resonates in their everyday life.
So if you're thinking to yourself, well, how else could I do this? I'm not teaching a class where maybe the policy report makes sense, or maybe the approach that Adolph took with financial literacy doesn't make sense for you. You could consider just direct service projects and just getting your students out into the community, learning about the community context, and then again, bringing in that reflection. You could look at larger financial literacy programs if that did really speak to you. Maybe a deeper research project makes sense, or social advocacy in the form of going to city council. This can look like so many different things, and there's so many different options, especially within economics. So why should you consider this? Well, first of all, it is just a great way to ground yourself as an instructor, but also your students and your department and your local community. I know when I started my position here, I didn't feel like I really knew my community at all. And now I feel like I'm such a huge part of it, which has been a really valuable part of the CEL. It helps students understand the human side of economics. We know that we're studying humans. It's the social science. And while we love our rigorous analysis and our objective approach, it is important to remember the human side. And finally, the professional and career readiness skills that the students get are invaluable. The students consistently remark that they are really fortunate to have had this experience in their economic coursework, to be able to engage with these real partners and learn some of these soft skills that are going to be very valuable in the workforce.
And definitely, I want to mention why you should consider it. Just the outside lens, not especially on the human side of econ. When a lot of students think about economics, they always think about the financial, the math end that weighs very heavy. When you start to humanize it of how it applies to all different sides, from homelessness, from any different community engagement partner that you can have, it changes the way not only for your course, but for other courses that you want to enter this. Like, I want, not only if I can do this for my 200 level, I wish I could do this for multiple courses now.
And if you're not convinced, we do have some student comments and reflections on this experience, many remarking that this was a really impactful experience for them, both to engage in the community, but also to see how economics can be used to benefit our communities, to benefit other people, and again, those professional benefits. We would love to talk with you more about community engaged learning and welcome you to email us at our email shown here. So thank you so much, and we look forward to talking with you more about this project.